How to process emotions like trauma and anxiety. If you're watching this video, it's because perhaps you're not feeling well. Maybe you have a good job, you go to work, you have a family. On paper, your life may look like everything is good, but there are memories. There's a sensation, an emotion that does not leave you alone. You may have had a panic attack, or you feel maybe you're heading towards one. Mild depression. This is usually very common, but I'm here to tell you it is not normal or natural. You do not have to live with this. In fact, trauma and anxiety are two of the tightest prisons that humans can create for themselves. Because trauma means that whatever you lived through in the past is brought into your future. Because the fears that you have around what happened determine your actions today. And your actions determine the life that you live or the life that you will not live because you're insecure, you're afraid, because there's so much pain around relationships, around being alive. Who knows? I understand that for some of you, perhaps it is very heavy, childhood abuse, or things with romantic partners, or something else. Regardless of how big and how heavy it is, something that happened in the past does not need to define your present, and it definitely doesn't have to dictate your future. Anxiety, on the other hand, is also a very impairing emotion or sensation. It's something that has people play small in their life, has people not take risks because they don't feel safe. Anxiety by default is a feeling of unsafety, of insecurity, of something bad is about to happen, or something bad is happening. This mild state of fear and paranoia. And if your life is ruled by what happened before, what happened yesterday, and also limited by your fears of what may happen today or what may happen in the future, you're going to die with a lot of regrets. So I think this is clear, but it's important to bring it up, because only when we look at the problem for what it is, we have a chance at solving it. So how to process emotions like trauma and anxiety? Well, let's start with trauma. Trauma is something that happened in the past that left an imprint on you. Therefore, the first thing you need to understand is that trauma is not in the past. It is in this present moment. When your boss says something to you, when you get an email from the IRS or the tax agency, when the person you love leaves you unseen, there's a visceral reaction that happens in this moment. You're not thinking about it, you're just reacting. And that reaction maybe is some contraction, some closure, some fear, some desire to run away, anger perhaps, volatility. There's two expressions of it. The most common ones is fear, closure, and I'm out of here. And the other one is a desire to please the other, to solve things, certain codependency, the need to make sure I am safe. So whatever your reaction is, the first thing to understand is that trauma is not in the past. Trauma is in the present. It's the leftovers that you carry with you. Leftovers that are present in your body, in your system, in your tissues. I'm not going to go through explaining how trauma happens and how our body stores these memories and these emotions, but it has been researched and measured at labs where we literally carry the memories of what we have lived in our bodies. The good news is that because it's in the present, we can do something about it. If your trauma was only in the past about something that happened that can never be changed, then that would be bad news, because how do I heal from something that is no longer present? But if the emotion is there, if the memory comes back, it's because it is fresh. And because it is fresh, you still have access to it. And because you have access to it, you can do something about it. So how to process trauma? The first thing, and the most difficult one, and the reason why most of you will never heal from it, unless you do the work, is you have to take full responsibility for it. Full responsibility does not mean you are to blame for it. Please understand this, because responsibility and blame or guilt are usually enmeshed. People have a difficult time understanding what it really means. It's not your fault whatever happened to you, especially if you were a child. Maybe something that was really unfair happened to you. You did not deserve that, but you are responsible for it. I'll repeat, you are not to blame for what happened to you, but you are the only one that can do something about how you feel today about that. That is what taking responsibility means. It means that even though I feel that the hearts I was handed by the dealer are horrible ones, I understand that only I get to play them. And who knows, maybe I play them very well. I bluff, I take risks. And maybe the cards that in one moment I thought were the worst thing that could have happened to me end up being what makes me win. And the success, the glory, the joy is much greater because I knew what I was playing with and I made the most out of it. This is what being responsible for our trauma looks like. It means that even though my mom beat me up, even though my father was absent working too much, even though my ex-girlfriends cheated on me, betrayed me, even though whatever story you have about what happened, only you get to do something about it. You are responsible for it. You are able to respond, meaning you need to stop pointing fingers and expecting that somebody else is going to come and fix your trauma for you. Especially the person that abused you or hurt you or that was related to what happened to you. Like, do not hold your happiness hostage under the hopes that somebody who was perhaps very unconscious or some situation that happened, like, it's gonna come back to you and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Never ever put your healing and your joy and your happiness on the hands of somebody else, especially not a person that hurt you or a situation or something else, because then they win. Then they not only injure you or caused pain to you in the moment, but every single day after that. Think about it. Somebody did something to you once, but you've been doing something to yourself for years, perhaps. Who is the biggest bully, they or you? I don't mean to shame you or blame you, but I want you to get this. You are responsible for your trauma. Not to blame, not guilty of it. It was not your fault, but only you get to respond. Only you get to play the cards you were dealt, no matter how ugly they may have been. That's number one. No more excuses, no more pointing fingers, no more expecting for somebody to come and rescue you. Nobody's coming. Now, number two, identity. And this one is hard because most men and women that I have worked with and that I have met that went through severe trauma, they link it to their identity. A woman that hardens and becomes very closed off from relationships, she says, "I'm just a strong woman. I'm a business woman. I'm strong-headed and I don't give a about men." And that becomes her identity, her personality. A lot of men, I met many men that were using steroids and also full of tattoos and hitting the gym, and they look dangerous. Many of them were abused as children. And in their abuse, they felt so powerless that they swore to themselves that they will never, ever again be taken advantage of. And how do you prevent somebody from taking advantage of you? By becoming big and scary, right? Most of those men are actually quite insecure and quite afraid. And the facade, the vehicle they wear is a means to remain safe from a world that was once too unsafe and dangerous and scary for them. So you can see how sometimes with the trauma, we develop these strong identities. So the problem here is that if you are defined by your trauma, meaning because of what happened, you consider yourself a shy person, an anxious person, a depressed person, something. If you have ever said, "Oh, that's just who I am, that's just what I'm like," why will you say that? Why will you put yourself in a cage that is so tight and so ugly? Why will you let what hurts you define who you are? So to process trauma, you need to break the identity that is connected to it. And it may be a painful identity. It may also be a glorious one. Back in the day, I was very promiscuous and the party guy and the cool, fun guy. I was working as a dating coach. That was my identity. My trauma was fear of women, was being betrayed, was being scared of my mother. So I became a guy that women could not touch emotionally. And I took pride in that. But once I dealt with my trauma, I realized I need to let go of this identity. Who I become, who I get to be and to choose to be, we will see, but I need to shake hands with who I have been. So I want to invite you to do the same. If you consider this a big part of your story, let it be just a stepping stone, but not the end of it. Do not regurgitate your old stories over and over and over. There's way more ahead of you in life if you're willing to stop being defined by something that happened. Now, the last thing is, of course, transformation. All right, Nico, I am responsible. I will not define myself by my trauma. What do I do now? I'm watching these videos getting too long and you haven't said anything practical. All right, so when it comes to transformation, there are many tools that have a different fit for every person, but I'll give you a bit of a broad map. And first, you want to make sure that whatever tool of transformation you use includes the body as well as the mind, but it's very important that the body is included. I have met and worked with people who spent decades in talk therapy, and they got very comfortable at speaking about their trauma, understanding why it happened. My mommy, my daddy, this happened. This is why I'm here like this today. They had very perfect narratives and stories of why they are the way they are today. And yet they were still feeling anxious and depressed and scared and insecure and afraid of asking for a raise and afraid of quitting a cubicle job and leading into their life's purpose or doing something else. Why? And I'm not saying everybody. For some people, therapy is really, really, really powerful. If you've got a great therapist, and if you do, congratulations, celebrate him or her. But therapy starts dealing with the mind, and trauma is stored in the body. Trauma is literally a lot of fluids, energies, chemicals that were released in a moment of fight or flight, a moment of pain, of deep stress, where your body was thinking about running away or getting into a big fight and killing the other person. But most of the trauma happens as a child, so you're not gonna run away from your home with your He-Man or your Barbies and live on the streets. You're also not gonna fight against your father or your mother because they're so big, you can't do anything. So as children, usually we cannot move away, we cannot fight. So all the excess resources that the body produces in that moment, and every mammal has these responses, all of that gets stuck in the body. The problem is that these are highly acidic, they cause a lot of inflammation down the road, and they generate disease. So maybe you were singing and they told you, shut up. Or you went to school, you got a bad grade, and then you got, they withdrew their love from you and something happened. Maybe you got a knot on your throat, and that excess chemicals that your body produces get stored there. Talk therapy is going to take a long time to bring you all the way here and allow for your body to purge, to release the trauma that is stored in your body. You may understand it better, but that doesn't mean you have processed it. So what to do instead? Well, there's different healing modalities. Some people use plant medicines like ayahuasca. Some people use meditation, yoga. These are all great. One of the ones that I have found to be the most powerful, next to side by side with plant medicine and psychedelics, but without the use of any substance or anything external, is your breath. Certain types of breath work can really move emotions and difficult sensations and memories out of the body. Because through the breathing process, your mind takes a break and you get access to the memories and where they are stored. And in that way, you can process that, let them go, free them fully. So if you have watched up until here, there's a link below that I'm going to drop where I share with you a 2 to 3 minute guided practice that you can try right now to experience, have a direct experience of moving emotions, of releasing trauma out of your body. Of course, proper process is a little bit different, but you can get started and get a sense of what I'm talking about. Now, what about anxiety, Nico? Well, I'm here to tell you that anxiety is not really an emotion, it's more of an alarm bell. What I mean by this is that anxiety is like that little flashing light that comes on when something is happening. The alarm bell, the fire alarm, starts beeping very loud when there is smoke. Now, what most antidepressants or anxiety medication do is they shut your ears or they muffle the alarm, they cover it, they pack it under a lot of things. The problem with this is that if your house is burning, you're going to be in a very, very, very bad place because the alarm was not a problem, or you listening to it was not the problem. The problem was that there was something that required attention. So very often, and I've done this and sometimes I still do it, when we feel anxiety, we muffle it, meaning we go drinking, we go partying, we work too much, we distract ourselves with TV, with meaningless activities. We may be even spending time with loved ones, but we're not fully present because we're just running away from ourselves. We can't stay quiet and still. We cannot have free time because we go crazy. So we pack eating, addictions, working too much, sex, all kinds of things, hoping that in that distraction we won't hear the alarm. Or maybe we go to a doctor and they give us medication and suddenly we take it and it's all fine. But is it really? Because you haven't dealt with the issue. You just silenced the alarm, but there's still smoke. So how to process anxiety? I invite you to consider that every time you feel anxious, it's just an alarm bell that is pointing you towards a place in your home, in your body, that is on fire, that requires attention, and that is a gift. Very often when you're anxious, there is something in your life that deep in your heart, you know it's not what it could be. You are not being who you are. You are being someone that betrays himself or herself. You are playing small. You're sticking around people that are not good for you. Or perhaps you're acting in ways that you know are not good for your people. You're in a relationship that you know has expired a long time ago. You're putting up with nonsense from your family, from your co-workers, from your boss, from your employees that you shouldn't. Maybe you have neglected your body. Maybe you chose a job that pleased your parents and your family, but what you want to do, what you wanted to do, you dismissed. Anxiety is an invitation to come back into alignment. It is the alarm that sounds when life is knocking at your door, asking you to pay attention to what truly matters, to correct things so that you can live in harmony. So when you feel anxiety, do not see it as something that you need to be getting rid of, something bad, something nasty. It's not a problem. It's an invitation to heal a problem that perhaps is way more subtle and harder to understand. A problem that perhaps is rooted in previous trauma. I hope this was useful. How do you process emotions like trauma and anxiety? With trauma, you take responsibility, you stop making it your identity, and then you transform the emotions. I recommend you to try breath work. Come breathe with me and my wife if you're open to it. And then with anxiety, it's not really something you have to process, but it's something you have to listen to. And every time you feel anxious, you look, what am I doing that is going against the life that I am. How am I betraying myself? Can be in your relationships, your job, how you treat your body. Only you know. But I want to invite you to remember that living with pain from trauma and anxiety may be very, very, very common, but it is not normal. It is not natural. Just because many people have it, it doesn't mean that is the norm. It doesn't mean that is what being human is about. I hope you like this video. Like and subscribe. I will be sharing more insights, lessons, and practical tools and guided meditations for you to move from a trauma and anxiety-ridden life into freedom, peace, a life full of passion, and also prosperity. Talk soon.